Okay, guys, so this is RJ. We've been not personal friends face to face
Yeah.
much, but we've seen each other lots. I'm gonna start by allowing you to do your best to brag about yourself.
Oh, sheesh. That sucks. So, RJ Contreras, I go by RJ Drifts. That is my Instagram, my Facebook, and everything social media related. I am a semi pro drift driver, as you know, but more than that, I'm a business owner. So, I own a few different companies, Big Duck Club being one of them. We manufacture wide bodies, aero kits, ABS delete kits. We make custom prototypes for people, etc. So that's one of the aspects of my life. The other one is I am a musician, which is what takes me to the whole world, including here today, which is awesome. And I also co-own Hotpit Autofest with Jeff Jones, pro FD driver and business owner himself, and my partner, and a few other things that if I continue, it'll be too long.
Yeah, so there's a point where it's the like we're gonna keep it relative, but let's
Yep.
say that you have your hand in four or five, maybe even six businesses of a
Yep.
sort. And everyone knows that my prerequisite for coming on this podcast is that you are a entrepreneur. And
Yep.
we just had dinner together. I was just telling RJ that the reason for that is because my perspective is difficult to understand if you have not been an entrepreneur or if you're not one. I find that most drifters and drivers are, even if they do or have a normal 9 to 5 job,
Yep.
because in order to make this sport work, you have to make things work. You have to make ends meet and you have to figure out how to buy tires and you have to do all of these things that
Yep.
almost make you an entrepreneur
Yeah. You have to
just by
finance it.
being not dumb enough, but being dumb enough to
Yeah.
do this sport that we do. Like when onlookers ask, "How long do the tires last?" and when we tell them 45 seconds, and
They
what do
go
they
nuts.
cost? And we're
Yeah.
like, 120 a tire, and they're
Yep.
like, they just don't even have words for how that makes sense, and it
Yep.
doesn't. It really doesn't. But what makes sense within drifting for you?
For me, what really drew me to drifting to begin with was the culture. Um, just to give you a very short story, I was coming from tour as an artist, and I had gotten very burnt out from that particular tour. So I decided to buy myself a car. I saw this guy driving an E36 back then, and I was like, "What car is that?" It was nice and lowered and had coilovers and the whole thing, and I knew jack about cars. So I saw that E36, and I just go out and ask him, "Hey, what car is that?" And he tells me E36, and I'm like, "What the heck is an E36?" So I Google E36, and
Mm-hmm.
then the car came, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" So I ended up buying one for $600, and with a
That's
blown
nice.
engine,
That's nice.
with a blown engine. And my girlfriend at the time, who was my wife, she helped me swap the motor, and I knew jack about it. It was just a labor of, I got the car, it's got a blown engine, I need to borrow an engine hoist, and I went to Home Depot and bought basic tools. And I remember marking the wire harness 112233 with blue
Mm.
tape. And but the culture was what drew me in, because after I bought that E36, I tried a few different types of racing. I did wheel to wheel, I did spec Miata,
Mm-hmm.
I did time attack, and the culture, even till today, it is the culture for me
So,
what
to
driven me.
those listening that are not familiar with drifting, I have a lot of friends that are in different avenues of business, just like you. I'm sure
Yeah.
music industry people are like, what? What
Yeah.
is this? What is this culture that you are so attracted to?
Friendliness. Friendliness by far. The fact that everybody is willing to lend a hand when it's needed. That is massive. In in wheel to wheel racing, if you park your trailer too close to the other person, they yell at you.
Mm-hmm.
I experienced that. And in drifting, it was the opposite. When I broke my
Get
first,
closer,
I know.
right? Exactly.
When I broke my first axle, people came running, and they, lifted my car, and they started helping me taking out
Mm-hmm.
the axle bolts, and it was amazing. So that friendliness, that the camaraderie, that is absolutely the best for me.
Yeah, so interesting enough at LZ World Tour, Grant Anderson broke his diff in his car, and I swear his car was jacked up by people he doesn't even know,
Yeah,
with the car raised, with someone running with a drive shaft, pulling it out of Jimmy Oak's car and putting it
yeah.
in his car, and then a bunch of Canadians getting in there. When you pair drifting, then add Canadians to it,
Oh my
you've
gosh.
got the friendliest place you've ever been to. So he had his car wrenched on, worked, welders going. Three of the guys were with me. Um, I was busy doing something with my car, or I was driving or something, but all I remember is coming back and seeing like my one buddy laying on the ground, the welder going, covering the eyes, we got the grinder going, and his subframe was fixed in like 30 minutes. And he thought he was done. He was like, the diff is half on the ground. What are you gonna do to fix that? Like throw
Yeah.
it on the trailer, take it home, and we're like, no, this is no problem. We'll get this thing fixed easily.
You know why? It actually kind of makes sense of why drifters that decide to pursue drifting a little bit more seriously take that entrepreneurship role. Is because we are just go-getters. We have to be. If we really want to be in this sport, as you mentioned, it is pricey. So we have to figure out the means to be able to pay for all the broken parts and the tires and all that. And partners at a point, they're not just paying partners. They help you out in many different ways. But you need to figure out how to make that happen. So that's a good point of why a lot of us are entrepreneurs.
Almost all.
Yeah.
I think that if you're not and you're doing it for alternative reasons, then you'll come and go quickly.
Very
Like the
much.
turnover rate is probably much higher than we recognize, because
Yeah.
when we're in it with the people that we know are in it as well. But you see so many come and go. Now that I run events as well, we ran 6 events this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll see those same people next year. It might have been too much for them. So
Yeah.
it really does create, it challenges you. It increases your stress threshold bar if it's
Yeah.
measurable. Let's say everyone starts at 100 after a season of drifting. It might be at 200 because you went over 100 so many
Yeah.
times
Yeah.
that you just have to increase what you're capable of handling. And then for guys like us, when we have families, other businesses going on, everyone has struggles. And within the business, you're overcoming challenges daily.
Yeah.
Our stress hold bar is probably like
Way
700,
high.
800.
Yeah.
Like it's, and then we're up there all the time in the
Yep.
500-600.
Yeah.
We're at like 80%
Yeah.
all the time, oftentimes hitting 90 plus.
Yep.
And then we try to bring it back down, and we're comfortable at 80. Like we're comfortable being overwhelmed.
I have this bad problem that when I sit down to watch TV, which is almost never, I feel bad that I am not being productive.
Dude,
And
exact
it
same.
sucks because sometimes I am just so tired and I want to watch, I don't know, the 70 shows. And I just can't. My mind is rolling and thinking, and what's the next thing? And I didn't do that. And it's a thing that keeps you motivated, but at the same time, I have learned how to tone it down a little bit. But it's just a little bit. I still need to learn more.
I haven't been able to watch a movie in a long time. Which I feel like I'm not missing out on anything now.
Not really.
Like when I do watch a movie, it's with my family, and then it's an older one that I've already seen.
Yep.
Because I was just telling you, I watched Pirates of the Caribbean last week, and I'm like, I appreciate the fact that they used sets for everything.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it, actually. I'm like, this set would have cost a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Like when a thing explodes, it actually exploded.
Yeah.
Like I can only appreciate it because I think the time was between like basically early 2000s
Yeah.
to maybe like 08, 10. Green screen CGI wasn't good enough
Yeah.
to like give us what we needed, but they blended it with real sets.
Yeah.
And it was just perfection. And
Yeah.
when you look at the cost of some of these movies, 180 million, 250 million
And that was back then.
back then.
Yeah.
Now, I swear, the cost must be so low because the computer generated stuff is like so easy now.
I mean, that's why Hollywood is on strike right now.
Yes, because of
Exactly.
AI and CGI and all this
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually met someone at FD last weekend who is also on strike, who's a stuntman in the Hollywood scene.
Yeah.
And he hasn't worked in 6 months because of it. But when you ask, this would be a good conversation for you. I don't know if you're using like AI, ChatGPT for other
Yeah.
things, but like in the music industry, it's going to be a difficult thing to overcome when you can ask it to act as or behave as or mimic a
So
production studio expert in
w-
the field or
we
something.
already use it.
Yeah.
So I am the director of another company that it started developing AI for music technology close to 15 years ago.
Hmm.
15 years ago. And right now it is so widely used that, right now, for example, one of the softwares that we have could be literally while you and I are doing podcasts, it could be leveling our audio. It could be actually neutralizing my voice so the S's are not as SC. It's incredible. It makes your any production sound incredibly professional. And so this has been happening for many, many years already. And it is hard to combat. Many engineers are losing jobs. Many producers now, since AI or music creation is much easier, are struggling to combat what is coming out. Or some other ones are using it very much for their advantage if they are smart enough to do so, if they adapt to technology.
Yeah. You don't want to be Blockbuster with Netflix
Yeah,
knocking on the door. You
exactly.
want to say this isn't going away
Yep,
and we have to adopt it. It's like adapt or die, basically.
very much.
I mean, that's basically the premise of anything that we do. If you go to the gym, you're going to get calluses, and if you don't get calluses, you're going to tear your skin.
Yep.
So your body knows how to adapt. You need to know how to adapt your mind. It's such an interesting conversation to have with my parents now that I have kids, you have
Yeah.
kids. And when you consider the fact that when they were kids, we are the generation that was introduced to social media at an age where it was comprehensible.
Yeah.
And they didn't know what to do with kids that were able to talk to their peers without the filter of their parents.
Yeah.
So, what kind of damage is this going to do? Well,
Tons.
we are,
The guinea pigs.
yes,
Very
we
much.
are now having kids, and basically, we're not going to know until we're 60
Yeah.
what the damage was. And I think it's not great. I think that we've had so much time to develop without it,
Yeah.
and using community, human interaction, real relationships. I think depression is undoubtedly on the rise due to just social
Social
media.
media alone.
I would say almost in like completely due to social media because of how much like going to church for one thing has always been what I've seen as one of the most important things, not because of what you learn in church, but because of the accountability to get there, the discipline it requires to do it consistently,
Yep.
and then the people are going to hold you accountable.
Yep.
So if you just take those points and you say, okay, if I'm doing something wrong, someone's going to be disappointed,
Yep.
upset, look down, whatever
Yep.
they do, your people that you look up to are going to check you.
Yeah.
And then I think that that's the most value, but it's been ripped apart
Yeah.
from society and replaced with you can talk to anyone whenever, wherever, and
Yeah.
however you want
Yeah.
to talk to them.
Something that I was just reading just a few days ago, actually, when it came to our generation, was the amount of attention span from early 2000s till 2023. I read this about maybe 2 weeks ago. In the early 2000s, the attention span of a person was 30 seconds. So if in 30 seconds you didn't make your point or you gauged them in a particular interest base, they would kind of start wandering around and most likely you lost them in the conversation. By 2010, it was less than 8 seconds. So we went from, over 20 seconds to less than 8 seconds. And right now in 2023, and this is social media statistic, if a video doesn't engage the viewer in less than 0.7 seconds,
Oh, I thought you were going to say two.
0.7
Oh,
seconds,
no.
you have somewhat lost them. It's ridiculous.
So
It
you almost
is.
need like a flash or something crazy within the first 0.7 or else they're gone.
It's wild. How do you do that? I mean, people are so used to just going like this so
Yeah.
fast, and they don't even look at the
Even
video.
we're guilty of it for sure.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't it can't be worse than that. And I mean a lot of people I've been in a lot of debates, I would say, not arguments, but with friends where they say, well, every generation has said the same thing about the next generation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I think it's a graft arc, not a straight line.
Yeah.
I'm like, this isn't an easy slope where it's
Mm-mm.
one over, one up, one over.
Yeah.
This is a exponential
Yeah.
graph where it ramps up to the point where it's more like bits. It's like 4, 8, 16, 32,
Very
64,
much.
128, and then it just starts going.
Yep.
And it's like within 8 duplicates, you're already at like 1,000
Yeah.
times more. And I'm like, that's what I think it's more like. And it's going to ultimately lead us to an unsustainable
Yeah.
point, which I think we're reaching very quickly.
I mean, I was telling you right now, on the way on the drive to your shop, I fell in love with the scenery. It's my second time in Toronto.
Oh, the drive from there to here
Oh my
is
gosh,
fantastic.
it
Yeah.
was amazing.
Hmm.
But your particular area, once you make that right to whatever street that is, and you see that big lake,
Hmm.
uh, that for me was amazing. And I told you that I just sold my house in Los Angeles for that. I mean, besides LA being right now full of drug addicts and people shooting heroin on the streets and stabbings and all that, I just wanted to lower down my life. I wanted to be able to learn how to breathe.
Hmm.
So I moved away to a almost 2 acre property in farther east California, and my life has been amazing. And I am transmitting that to my kids from years now. I mean, they really don't watch much TV. They don't know what a Game Boy is. They don't know what a PlayStation is, even though they have played it, but they're not addicted to it. Same thing with social media, and that is what I'm trying to instill to them in the future. Because what you're saying, it is so pinpoint. What is going to happen if we are right now the guinea pigs? What is going to happen to them, and where is their attention span going to be, or their behavior? How is if ADHD right now is such a big issue, what are they going to come up in another 15 years?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's very reliant on technology. It's a little too much. I've always said to a few people, my parents had the courtesy on putting us through mission trips through
Yep.
Haiti, Guatemala,
Nice.
and we went there to see the other side. And what you actually find is a very happy civilization
Yep.
that's amongst the worst poverty in the world.
Yep.
And then you ask the question to yourself, how can they be so happy
Yeah.
without eating consistently or drinking all the time
Yeah.
or whatever? And they're playing soccer with compressed garbage that they stepped
Yeah.
on to get into a ball. Like they would see a used water bottle and think, I can kick that around
Yeah.
for the next week and it's going to be fun.
I think it's one thing that we are missing ourselves as a culture in the Western culture, which is gratitude. I think gratitude, it is so far, or it has been taken so far out of our vocabulary that we miss those little things. We need to have more. Our worth is measured by the assets that we have, when in reality it's a complete opposite.
Hmm.
Because when we die, those assets are gone. But the memories, and the memories that we build with others, with our kids, our mother and father, with whoever, that is what it is. As I'm a big old believer. And one of the things that I talk about with people that tell me, like, hey, RJ, how are you racing, and how are you in the music industry, and how are you doing this, but you're such a big believer in Christ? And are you perfect? Like, do you drink, or do you this? I'm not perfect. I don't think nobody is perfect,
Mm-mm.
period. But the thing is that I know that someone has grace for me. God has grace for me, and that keeps me moving. I don't have to be perfect, you know? And I don't know what led me to this, but something that you said led me to this.
Yeah.
Oh, gratitude. and,
Yes.
and and that is part of gratitude. Once you are once you are thankful for whether you have so much or so little, man, your life changes in every aspect.
Hmm.
From what you want to achieve in life with your goals, all the way to your business, all the way to your investments, all the way to how you help other people and how you guide them to their success. Because now you are grateful for what you have. You are not trying to just achieve the next thing just because. That will come in time. That will come with your success. But it is such a big thought, a big bubble of multiple little steps. And I think gratefulness, it is per se one of the first steps on top of forgiveness with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, forgiveness for yourself is very important.
Yeah.
Another thing that's really important to instill within yourself is delayed gratification. Make sure that what you're trying to achieve isn't going to instantly satisfy you. And then once you've been able to overcome and focus on a goal and then get the goal,
Yeah.
that delayed gratification is going to teach you lessons that'll last you a lifetime.
Definitely.
Going to the gym for me is one of those things. You work towards something that eventually will be what you want, and it actually never happens, to be honest with you, which is perfect.
Yeah.
Because you can just go forever.
Yeah.
And you constantly improve, but you never get there. And it's like chasing your future self and what you want to be in 5 years.
Yeah.
You will never, well, once you get there, you'll have your next 5 year yourself plan, whatever.
Exactly.
The other thing that people need is perspective outside of themselves, and that's what mission trips do or did for me anyways. And we went on them 15 years ago, like when we were teenagers.
Yeah.
This perspective is a life lesson that's lasted me 15 years. That's why I say anyone should go and do something like that,
Yeah.
because once you come back home, everything
Is different.
has infinite value now, and you can't help but feel like you just need to do more. Just
Yeah.
like you were saying, you can't watch movies or TV. It's like if you go on a mission trip, I guarantee you for the next year, you won't be able to do any of those things, and wasting time will all of a sudden become like a thing of the past for you. And you'll have a reason to get up. I don't like to use the word motivation because it's like, how do you get motivated? It's like, I don't. Sometimes I really don't want to do what I'm doing.
Discipline.
Yeah, discipline. And then you said consistency. So they go hand in hand.
That is, those two words I think are key to success. Let me tell you, I am not the brightest bean on the pot, if that's even a saying. I'm mixing Portuguese and Spanish and English.
Yeah.
Clearly, I'm not the smartest one here,
But
but I am consistent. And that is what leads to success. And I don't say this to be big-headed or whatnot, but that has led to my success in all the business that I do. The fact that I know that I have a routine of consistency. For me particularly, it actually starts by waking up and doing the bed. My wife could be sleeping and I get up and I do the bed on top.
your half.
Yeah, I do my
Nice.
dude, I've covered her face sometimes.
That's funny.
But for me, it starts in making the bed. And if I don't make the bed, my day did not start right. It is such a weird concept.
Wow.
But consistency and that routine, like you going to the gym, that is so important because you started with what is leading your day for success. And for I don't know if this happened to you, but when I started my businesses, I looked into the future. I looked like 10 years into the future and I was like, yeah, this is going to happen. But then as much as I looked into the future, I also got unmotivated because it wasn't happening fast enough.
Yeah.
It was until I started looking into the daily and into the small wins that really started bringing me to, okay, this is happening. So how do I make this small win a bigger win? And I thought about that and I created a bigger win. And I had to check myself to look not so distant into the future, to look closer. And as I progressed, I started looking farther and farther and farther. And now I have a way bigger goal. But I had to learn how to look into right now and achieve that goal. If I don't do that, nothing will happen in the future.
Yeah. So subconsciously, you were able to recognize that these small hits of dopamine for like creating or getting the success was enough to, make up for the ultimate end goal.
Yep.
And what I think that I think it's just a personality trait that's given you the ability to do such a thing so well. But I think a lot of people struggle with almost like a false sense of that. They will tell somebody that they're going to do something.
Yeah.
That will give them the gratification or the dopamine hit or whatever chemically is going on in our brains. And then they just don't end up doing it at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the majority of the population struggles with, including myself. If I was to tell somebody that I'm going to do something, it's a great idea.
Yep.
It's this cool thing. The best thing is to work on it in silence. until it's at a point where, you know, you've at least completed it mostly, or
Yep.
it's at a point where you've like it's very difficult to decipher between the two because you're
Yeah.
excited about it,
Yeah.
but you almost lose the motivation to do it
Yeah.
if you know say it too early or something. So yeah, the little wins are definitely important to get to where you want to go,
Yeah.
and it's something that most people need to strive for, to
Yeah.
go for. They get so caught up with it's too much for them, so then they do nothing.
And I this just came into my mind right now after hearing a podcast. One of the worst failures of an entrepreneur, it is actually the dependency on that dopamine. And what it is by starting new businesses. When you start a new business, it's exciting.
Yeah,
It's
of
you have the
course.
new idea and you build a marketing plan and you form a small team if you have the capabilities to do so. But then once again, you just formed it. Now you need to water the plan. You need to harness the business. And that consistency aspect is what really matters then. Because you could start 15 businesses that they might be all winners. But if you're not consistent enough to pursue them on your daily,
Hmm.
they will be nothing. And that's for me that hit me like a ton of bricks because thankfully I have failed forward, which I love that term. I have failed many times, but they have taught me that failing at an X level will help me understand the next business venture or whatever that I make.
Hmm.
But yeah, that came into my mind.
I put it into a like something that other people are able to understand. Like you always try to put yourself in other people's shoes or explain a scenario as if you were them so that they can appreciate it or grasp it.
Yeah,
It's a very difficult thing to do because the biggest problem is when my idea leaves my mouth, it's lost through our language
yep,
translation. So I have 100% thought and then I deliver to you at 80%. And then you receive, interpret it at whatever you and your language and your background and
yep,
everything that is about you. You now lose another 20%.
yep,
And then you think about what I just said in a completely different way. And if that happens 3 times, it's lost,
correct.
basically. So, especially um, given that our backgrounds, where we live, who we know,
Yeah,
it's totally different. So,
very
we
much.
have to do a very good job at like breaking it down and trying to explain things as if, and
That
it's a difficult thing to do.
that is one of my biggest issues. I'll be the first one that say it, not only because of the language barrier. English is not my first language, obviously,
Hmm.
but I do have problems communicating even within my own team members. So a lot of times I have to think, really narrow down my thoughts and communicate because what you said is so accurate. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's always been portraying an idea, especially when it's a good one or when it's something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get frustrated with the other person not grasping it.
Yeah.
And then all you need to realize is that pictures are worth 1,000 words. Like, if
Seriously,
you can create a video, a picture, or something,
it's done.
you don't even need to say much. Most people visually are like that's one of our first. I'm a kinesthetic learner. Like if I do something with my hands, I'll
Done.
remember it
Yeah.
forever. But most it's a combination with visual. So a picture's worth 1,000 words, especially when you're in the business that I'm in, which is
Yeah.
trying to explain such complex geometry, kinematic things.
Yeah.
That's why I made that alignment series, that build series. I don't know if you've ever seen it
Yeah.
or not, but
Oh, it helped me tremendously.
yeah, I explained so many things through visual and kinesthetic learning because
Yep.
with me, I turn it, I see it, I'm good.
Yep.
I now know exactly what you're talking about. And that's how I develop and do a lot of things. Like some people talk about all these anti-squat posts and how to get more grip and drift and how to do all these things. Fortunately for me, I go to the track and I try everything from minus 200% to plus 200% and all the values in between.
Yeah.
And I can actually present to you, no, because I did it and this is what
Yep.
happened. And I took the data, I did everything, and I do that because I'm interested in it and I'm passionate about it and I love it. So
Yeah.
it's like I'm a big data guy. It's like I just love the numbers of everything. So yeah, that's the best way I've been able to um, communicate with everyone on a level that is is,
Relatable.
yeah, relatable.
Yeah.
That's the right word. What would you say your, so I don't know what you did before all of your businesses and adventures. You said you're 37,
30s. Yeah, 37. Uh-huh. Man, I'm
which is
getting old. 85,
85.
something like that. Yeah.
So I'm a 92, you're an 85. What would you say, or when, or how, whatever, when and how and what was your TSN turning point? Which by that I mean the pivot of maybe you becoming an entrepreneur, or when your life changed in the sense of the direction that you're going. Have you always been like this?
I have always been a leader by nature, not a forceful leader. I've just always naturally happened to be a leader. And mostly I was a rule breaker.
Mm,
I think that is what led me to entrepreneurship. I am a very valuable employee if you are willing to put with my rule breakings. And that is the honest truth. So I'm very creative. And if you give me a budget, I will stick to it. However, I might not stick to the plan 100%.
right.
And that led me to entrepreneurship. I actually got let go of two jobs, in the past. And one of them, literally verbatim, they told me, RJ, you are great, but you are missing too many steps in this whole process. The goal was achieved and it was achieved greatly, but you missed too many steps that there were supposed to be there. And in my mind, I am like, well, I didn't have to make that step. That step was a waste of time if you thought it strategically.
Hmm.
In corporations, etc., there are certain ways of how you do things. So anyway, to answer your question, I think being a rule breaker, being a person like a wild horse in a way, led to me to create my own thing because truly I didn't. I know I am employable. I know that I bring value. However, will people put up with my uh, what do I call it?
Antics. I don't
Yeah,
know.
with that's one of the things that I always fear. Like, will
You
would
don't
I?
need to fear it anymore because
Yeah,
you don't, you work for yourself.
yeah.
So, in the exact same way, I actually just won. I have paper proof that we're the same. Um, I was at my regional award ceremony for the city, which encompasses 4 cities. It's called the Quinny West region.
Yeah.
That's where we are right now. And basically, we were nominated for an award, Manufacturing Company of the Year. There was 10 other nominees within that sector, and there was 170 businesses amongst other sectors, health, retail, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, they were just about to announce the Manufacturers of the Year award. I do know a lot of the companies that are in it. I know their owners. I'm friends with them, whatever. They announced it and another company won. But they said, after these awards are done, we have one other award that is amongst all businesses. So stick around and see who wins that one. After the manufacturing award was done, I'm like, some of these companies are making 100 million a year. Some of them are like P&G, Kellogg's. Like in this region,
Yeah.
we have huge companies. It's just a very large industrial park where we are. So I wasn't able to stick around because I was leaving for New Jersey competition where, side note, I won first at the event and then I
I
won the whole
know.
series at this weekend. But anyways, I had to leave because I had to pack. It was 9:30. We ended up winning that award that was amongst all companies. And it was the Trailblazer of the Year award, which means you made your own path amongst all of what you should be doing when you go into business. The most common three are health, wealth, and what's the third one? See if you can come up with some ideas. It's the
Health,
three
wealth,
most, like if you go do business in these 3 categories, you will be successful no matter what. Health, wealth, and
tech, real
it's
estate.
not tech. Somebody will say it, I'm sure, in the comments.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's three. It covers 99% of the entire population.
Okay.
I didn't do any of them. I just did like, I would like this. And I
Yeah.
don't know if it'll make me health. It has nothing to do with like whatever. I'm just doing this. And they recognize that. So just like you, rules don't apply.
Yeah.
We are doing this because we're being led to do it.
Yeah.
What is leading us? We don't even know. This energy is guiding us into a place where we belong, and then we are going to influence hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah.
And it's important to sustain your reputation, and I think you've done a fantastic job doing that. And then I do the best I can, although that video a couple days ago was, if we're going to talk about
You're a
it,
rule breaker.
right. Definitely that. Not going to mention what it is, but I'm sure if you are aware, it's on the internet. It didn't go viral,
Yeah.
but fortunately, because of where I have positioned myself in this community, that those dirt pages on Instagram, they actually reached out to me and asked if they could post that.
No way.
So I'm like, wait a second.
They were that kind?
Listen, this is where it gets interesting. This is where it's great to always be kind, always be respectful, treat your neighbor as you would want to be treated
Yep.
yourself, etc., etc. They asked me, and I'm like, definitely didn't think you'd ask. Thought for sure I was going to see it. And I sent the screenshot to my group chat, and I was like, this is not good, because they messaged me just asking how it's going. And I'm like, this page is not kind to anybody.
Yeah.
Anyways, we got into conversation. The inevitable happened. He sent me the video and he said, can I post this? And then I said, honestly, respectfully, if you couldn't or didn't, I would really appreciate that, because I've already sacrificed my mental maximum stress threshold. I have my kids. I got to get to school. I'm going to be up all night again if you do this. Like,
Yeah.
and then I said at the end, but it's in your hands. I'm like, I can't control what the internet does, and I just have done my due diligence as a human being, and basically, that's what I told him. And he said, fortunately, I respect you outside of this, so I got you, and that's all he
Sick.
said. And I was like, wow.
You mentioned something so key, which is respect. I would say I'm thankful that all the relationships that I have, besides maybe like one or two, are in outstanding shape. But that takes mutual respect, and that takes also giving yourself away for people without expectation. And that's a lot of. I think there is a misconception that when you help somebody, at some point you want to get it back. You know, you give to receive, and sure, that will happen, but don't expect it. You know, give yourself selflessly always, and people will be drawn back to you. So in that sense, yeah. I mean, dude, you and I have talked how many times via Instagram or Facebook, and then, you know, we get to meet here after years, and the mutual respect is there. Even when some topics have been, you know, quite hairy, including, you know, some of the stuff that we have talked about. But dude, the respect is there. So that's actually amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely, the seed was planted, not even there. And I don't, and I said, because now I all of a sudden have this accountability to this invisible person, society, you could say.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I thought I knew who that person was. And I poked it at it a little bit. And I said, it doesn't really matter. You don't need to tell me. If there's anything that, because he knows who I am, he knows that I run FTF, he knows all of these things. I said, well, for whatever it's worth, you have, if you need anything, just feel free to ask me. And it's not even like he had the power or control. He was simply just going to share something that he knew would be potentially damaging, although things on the internet only last about a week and then nobody remembers. But at the same time, the respect was there. It was a seed planted basically within everybody all the time.
Yeah.
And like you said, it what goes around comes around, and it may not be from the same person
Exactly.
that you helped, but it will be, you know, as long as that's basically as simple as you can put it.
Yeah.
What goes around comes around.
There you go. Yeah.
So tell me more about your Hotpit series that you've started. And again, for those of you who don't, are not into drifting, I know we talk about it quite often on this podcast, but maybe you guys should get into it because it creates a lot of really great people.
Yep.
Yeah, so tell me more about Hotpit, what it is, why you started it. Tell me the details.
So let me start in the very beginning so it could make sense.
Hmm.
In Southern California, a few years ago, there was an event called All-Star Bash. Basically, it was the season-ending event at a Willow Springs Raceway where, 200 or, 150 drivers went and drifted together, did, crazy amounts of tandem trains and whatnot. So in this particular year, I think it was 2018 or 19, I'm not sure which one it was, Jeff Jones and myself, we just decided to pit together. I had talked to Jeff maybe like 5 times in my whole life as very basic conversations, but we just decided to pit together. Cool deal. So we drove with our own, group of people. Definitely he's a much better driver than me. And at night, I ended up bringing out one of my DJ controllers, just an all-in-one controller that is much easier than bringing turntables or CDJs, and a set of speakers. And anyway, I'm DJing, and then Jeff comes and he's like, "Hey, dude, I used to be a DJ," and I'm like, "No way!" And then I'm like, "Dude, hop in the ones and twos. And he goes and he starts doing his thing, and he starts getting crazy, and him and I are going, back to back, and that really bonded us in like in that little moment, music. So it's maybe like 11 o'clock at night, and I tell Jeff, "Hey, dude, we have a whole party going on in our little area, but there is like 70 other trailers down there, like in the other side of the track. Why don't we put the controller in your truck? I have a generator. We bring the speakers, and we basically have like a rolling stage." And it was game over, dude. There are videos of that where we are like, there's 15
This was a
people.
couple years ago?
This is a couple of years
Wow.
ago. Yeah, there's like 10 or 15 people in the back of the truck. We have the decks in there. We are DJing. There's a speaker. It's like a moving party.
That's awesome.
We go to the other side of the track, and everybody starts partying and blah blah blah. Anyway, that's what started this. The following day, that's when Jeff and I really got friendly. Like, "What's up, dude? Like, awesome night, this and that, blah
Hmm.
blah blah." And we just exchanged numbers. He actually told me, he's like, "Dude, whatever you need, like if you need, like a handbrake or something, dude, just give me a shout. Like you're a cool dude." Jeff is super down to earth. So I did. I needed something. I forgot what I needed, but oh no, actually, he gave me an awning for my trailer. He told me, he's like, "Hey, dude, you have a little cool trailer, but it's missing an awning." And I'm like, "Oh, I know." He's like, "I have one. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." So I went and I picked it up. So then we stayed in communication, and that's when it really turned into what Hotpit is now. We started talking about what was missing in Southern California in terms of drifting. Not just a competition, but in all areas of drifting. Making the drivers better, preparing the drivers financially, being able to make them superheroes or local heroes to their own community, teach them about entrepreneurship and finance. He himself is an entrepreneur, Jeff. So we just started having like a broad conversation, and at a point, him and I said we should kind of try to do our own little series. We said it like way back then, like maybe this was like 2020 at that time, and we were like, all right. And then we really started pinpointing, these are the areas where we need to grow or where we need to be at, and these are the areas where we don't want to be at. We want to have an amazing show, but we don't want to have it at a track that is way too far to where nobody's going to come. We want to have an amazing series, but an amazing series that payouts drivers. We want to have a series that is streamed online, but that it focuses in education of drifting. A lot of drifters or a lot of new to come drifters don't really know, judgment criteria or points basis or whatnot. So let's educate the people. So we created our own plan, and then we started reaching out to different tracks. Irwindale Speedway, Willow Springs, Sonoma. And then a friend of mine, Nick, I don't know if I'm his friend now. He just released a video hating me because uh, he introduced me to the promoter of the Orange Show Speedway, but his idea or what he wanted to do in drifting wasn't aligning to what Jeff and I had done. And he wanted to be a hotpit, but he didn't want to invest, and it was a whole thing. Anyway, to keep it short, he introduced me to this person. We spoke to the Orange Show Speedway's track manager. We told him the whole idea, and he said, "No, thank you." He legit said, "No, thank you. I am not really interested in drifting at that level." So I had to talk to him multiple times and convince him, and I even told him, "Here is my credit card. Here's my business license for one of my own businesses. If anything goes wrong, I am full liable for whatever happens in this whole event." And by me giving him, a liability, let's say, or a contingency of like 50 or 100 grand, that's when he actually let us run the first event. And that's what really started Hotpit. So we did the first event. It was supposed to be 4 rounds. It ended up being 3 because in the last round, the track canceled our event just days before the event, and people were already almost starting to travel to California. So it was a big old mess. But that taught us how to deal, with Hotpit. Now, at the same time, year 1, which was 2002, in the initial business plan that we had, it didn't really go as we wanted. It grew in terms of the drifting aspect, which is a grand part of it, but the whole business plan wasn't necessarily just in drifting. Part of what we want to do is change the concept of what a drifting competition or a track day is. The first thing, like if you want to go, with your friends to a meet or to a track day, it almost immediately you start imagining a whole bunch of dudes in their race cars, talking and having fun, but it's 90% dudes. We wanted to change that concept. We want to make sure that your kids, your wife, your grandma, your mom, your grandpa, is going to be there and enjoy that day with you. That was the concept of Hotpit. It was a lifestyle event that included drifting. And to that, we brought like bouncers, and we brought a music stage, and we brought video games, and we brought RC drifting and a drone show. It was so other people could not only be a part of drifting and the event, but they could also enjoy it. That is a little bit of Hotpit plus, so much more than.
Of course, so much more. And drifting's perfect for that because there is so much dead time with drifting. Like at any given time, there could be half an hour to an hour of just nothing going on. And what better thing to have than all of these other activities for other people to enjoy it. And if I was a driver and there was a break, maybe I'd like to hit the bouncy castle with some kids, with my kids. That would be perfect. Get them all tired because that's the hardest thing that you need to do with kids. They have triple the energy. Think of it this way. They eat the same amount almost as we do, but they're 25% the size. So you're getting the same energy as I am.
Bouncing.
But I'm trying to run like a Mack truck and you're trying to run like a little race car. So it's like, of course you're going to be able to go way more. Oftentimes when we get drinks, we get the same size drink. I'm like, if I drink all of this and you drink all of this,
it's going to be a whole different experience.
Well, I'm way bigger. It's like, it's diluted, right? No, that's great. And I mean, all of those things that you're describing are basically failures moving forward.
Correct.
Like you said earlier. And I always try to tell people what failures are like by putting some kind of a relevant value on a failure to them. So like if you were to go and pay for a semester in college, what's that worth? Let's say it's $10,000. What are you going to learn at that semester with the $10,000 that is valuable? It might actually be worth less than what one mistake will teach you. And I was saying some mistakes that I've learned from are worth $100,000 or more. I said you couldn't have learned this with 3 years, 4 years of education.
Nope, not even a little bit.
Exactly. I'm like, it gives you, well, not only does it give you the lesson, but it gives you the emotional pain,
Mm-hmm.
the suffering, and everything else
Yeah.
that goes with it. And I said, those lessons, you can talk about it, but you
Yeah.
can't. Like if I had a syringe that had like that feeling in it and then I gave it to you, you would never want to feel that again. So these mistakes are almost priceless,
Yeah.
basically. But if I had to put some kind of a value on it, I'm like, you'd have to go to school for like 6 years
Yeah.
to learn what I did from making this mistake.
Yep. Yep.
Another perspective is like Michael Jordan has 6 rings for the NBA, but how many doesn't he have? A lot
Mm.
more than 6.
Yeah.
He played a lot more. I think he played like 14 seasons or something.
Something like that. Yep.
And he has lost more than he's won. But what do we remember him for? The
The
6
ones.
that he won with the same team, which was even more commendable than most. So that's what we remember.
Yeah.
He made, I don't know how many game-winning shots he made, like 37 game-winning shots. He missed like 100 and something,
I know jack about basketball.
right? I don't really know that much either,
Yeah.
but we all know who Michael Jordan is. So
Yeah.
that's why he's like the reference for the greatest player to ever have existed is him. And it's like, well, this guy failed way more than he won or
Yeah.
succeeded. So I wanted to tell you, dude, we're at 53 minutes. Can you believe that?
Whoa, that's wild.
53 minutes.
And we haven't even talked about business.
I know. I did know that this was going to happen. So it's one of those things. It should definitely happen again. Possibly it could be just virtual. I need to get a better setup for that.
Well, I'll be coming here more often, so it'll
Dude,
happen.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could definitely have like a recurring podcast, which would be sweet because most podcasts fail before 20 episodes. And
Yeah.
I'm currently at like 8. So we need to keep
Yeah.
going. We need to keep going. I wanted to tell you about my series and maybe because you haven't told me anything about your criteria, how
And
it's
I will.
run. But comparably, I'm going to tell you what I'm excited about. And because I have a reputation of doing what I say I'm going to do, this isn't me getting my dopamine hit by telling you what I'm going to do because I will do it. And it's fueled by other things like not going to a certain series,
Yep. Yep. We spoke about that.
which makes it even better.
Yeah.
That I have been given this revelation of new vision, basically. And I can now see clearly almost because I was shut down here, and sometimes closing small doors opens up
And
massive
a bigger
ones,
door. Yep.
right? So what I want to do is NADC, NADC North American Drift Championship. It will be on the East Coast because that's where I am. So I'm okay with sharing these ideas with you, actually. And from that, I want to develop a type of drifting that I think every other sport has had, and for some reason, drifting never has. And it kind of follows suit with what you're saying, focusing on drivers, making them feel like they're valued, which
Yep.
is something that I care a lot about. So, my first point is to create a type of judging and scoring for qualifying that stays with the driver somehow. So, I'm going to explain this the best I can. For qualifying, there is no longer individual runs. It will never happen in this series. It will always be done in a battle format. So you'll be qualifying in battle. How will that be scored, you ask? It's like, okay, well, we're going to have 2 judges for lead and 2 judges for chase. We're not going to have 3 judges, and we're not going to follow the same criteria that everything has ever followed ever because I'm a trailblazer and we don't do things like
Yep.
other people. So this is going to be my own format, and I actually want to call it FDF judging style because whenever we go into competitions, they always say, do you guys want FD style judging or do you want this style or like your traditional line angle style? And I'm like, who said that it was so-and-so's
That.
thing? So whatever. Anyways, this is going to be 2 judges for the lead, 2 judges for the chase. The 2 for the chase are going to only judge chase all day long. That will be judged out of 50 points. The lead judges are going to be judging lead runs all day long. That will be judged out of 50. The track will not be broken down into zone, interclip, zone, whatever the format may be. It will be judged by 5 sections. Section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you'll be judged out of 10 points per section. So your initiation, let's say you're initiating into a zone. That will be your section 1. You will be judged out of 10 on the first section. As soon as you initiate, let's say you were not quite on the wall and you went through and you got into the zone maybe a bit late, you get a 7 out of 10. And you follow the track until you reach 50 points. In a battle format, let's say it's me versus you. I'm leading first, you're chasing. The judges are going to judge me on how I was in each section, which can be broken down into line, angle, and style for the lead. You are the chase driver. You are going to be judged on mimicking my angle and my line and proximity. So how good were you able to match me and how close were you doing it?
Correct.
So what's going to happen is this will change the way that chase drivers drive forever. Because the worst thing that happens is when you have 2 cars and let's say the lead driver is a crappy run. The chase driver now knows that he doesn't need to do much. He just needs to be there, 2-3 cars back, and he'll be good. He'll win the battle. I don't ever want to see that ever again. I hate it. It's the worst thing ever. When you go into a finals battle, someone makes a mistake and they're like hanging back 6 cars. I hate it. That would be a 0 in the chase position, and you never want to do that. So what's going to happen is once after the first run, say I lay a killer lead, I got 45 out of 50. Let's say you did a pretty good chase, 42. This is where it gets interesting. Those scores will be posted live before the second half of the battle. So going into our second half of the battle, you will know that I have the advantage and everyone else will know. I'm sitting with a 45, you're sitting with a 42. You are going to have to kill it in the lead in order to up my 3-point advantage. I'm going to have to do everything I can to hold on to it because I know you're going to go hard. And I have to at least match a 43 in the chase, which is really good.
Yeah.
So when I compete, I'm going to be dooring you so hard because of how well you did, and then you need to hit every single point perfectly. There's no room for saying, you don't really need to do a full kill run. You just need to do pretty good. Like that'll be dead in the water, and you'll lose immediately. So the battle concludes. Let's say I messed up in the chase. I got a 36, and you did do a killer lead, 42. Add those 2 together. There's your winner.
Yeah.
OMTs will be almost non-existent. The fans are going to know so fast who's winning and who won. There will be almost no deliberation. It's basic math. Judging by section, what I imagine is them driving through the course and the judge just has 1 through 5. And as you go through the zone, they're just going to write a number. It's 8, 7, 10, 7, 8. And then they're going to look back. They're going to confirm on the live stream, and then that's your score. Simple as that. And then they're going to post it right away. This is going to remove so much unconscious bias, so much time spent on a unconscious bias and opinion and everything else going on with waiting and time. Imagine there was a 5-minute call between the 2 runs. I hate that because now you're watching the second half of the battle with a massive space and an entire battle in between the 2.
Yeah.
How can you possibly decide or no? We're human beings. Any human being can't focus on more than I think it's 4 or 5 things.
Yeah.
But in drifting, we're trying to look at 40 different variables here. So this is the format that I want to go with. And then to go even beyond what this is, which is going to change drifting as it is.
Yeah.
Because people are throwing these scenarios at me. They're like, well, what if this happens? Well, what if that happens? And what if the chase driver messes up and does something to the lead? And I said, these are all variations that happen today and are horribly dealt with.
Yeah.
Horribly dealt with. I will never have to deal with the stupidest thing that I hate in drifting, and it's when the chase driver blames the lead car for the smallest things. He braked slightly before the brake zone, and I hit him, and it's like, dude, you are being judged on how well you can adapt.
Yeah.
If the lead driver makes a mistake, he will be scored on that on his own. If the chase driver is able to mimic that mistake, you will be rewarded on your own. If he gets a 40, you can still get a 50. You know what I mean? This will change drifting.
There's actually a point to this judging criteria that really excites me, which is that in theory, the chase driver could outscore the lead driver. usually the lead driver has the advantage. You're not dealing with smoke. You're not dealing with, gravel, like, and all the little things.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're even if you are a lesser skilled driver than the person that you're battling, if you're in a lead position, you usually have a little bit of a greater advantage because you are the first one. But I love the fact that in your judging criteria, it doesn't matter which one is better, but the chase driver could outperform or outscore the lead driver even if it was in an advantage
Because you'll be
situation.
rewarded for
Yeah,
adapting to a poor lead run,
exactly.
which I will commend every time. And that's
Yeah,
what, like me, Magic Mike, Mike Pollard, a lot of guys like that really, it's one of those, like, we are the types of drivers where a lead car will make crazy mistakes and do all sorts of things, and we will adapt.
yeah,
Like, there's a video of it where parked it in zone one, we're going 75 miles an hour, and I was able to adjust, adapt, correct my car, and still get back on the door after the transition. Completely the lead car's mistake. So many drivers would be like, oh, he did this, so like the chase is a scratch, basically. It's
yeah,
like, mm-mm.
yeah. No,
He's going to get a bad score,
correct.
and you can get a better score.
Yeah,
It
I
will
like that.
change the way that we drive and look at drifting.
I like that. For Hotpit, we also created our own criteria of both qualifying and judging. We don't follow the FD rules per
Mm-hmm.
se, and part of that it is the qualification. Let me kind of explain you how it goes because I think it is something that could be even blended a little bit in between my series and your series. We could learn from you and you could learn from us. Uh, we do a qualification format. Actually, before I even say this, when Jeff and I were brainstorming about qualifying, we said the exact same thing. We are not going to have a one qualification run. We are going to qualify everyone while they are practicing on tandem. Why did
Mm.
we decide that? Because we force everybody to practice at their max. So all the judges are looking at every single person practicing and tandeming, and basically they would create
A
this
seed.
score point. Correct. They would create
Yeah.
a seat for 32 drivers. We went back and forth with the judges and this and that. We decided to not necessarily scrap the idea, but to go back a little bit to the traditional judging, or I'm sorry, qualifying criteria, simply because we asked the drivers if they like that, and they said no, we want the traditional, blah blah blah. So we gave them that. Now there's a big difference. We seat 24 drivers, so every single driver goes. We have a cap of 40 drivers. That is a mandate by us.
Mm-hmm.
We have about 72 drivers that have registered to our series, but we only have a cap of 40. We do that for practice time. We do that
Mm-hmm.
just in case there's crashes and so many other variables. But out of the 40 drivers, only 24 are the ones that qualify. The rest of the field, to complete the 32, they have to go to a death match. And that is a
Yeah.
battle,
Mm-hmm.
and that actually helps really reward the person who goes in front or who battled the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have your 32, then we do something very interesting, which is where I'm leading to this collaboration. We don't have zeros, just like
Mm-hmm.
you said. We believe that zeros are pointless. I don't want to say pointless, but they don't really give you the whole picture. Because you might be doing an amazing run. You might be chasing or leading, and might be doing an amazing run, and you might just have a little hiccup that totally disqualifies perhaps the best run of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is that we sum all the points per zones that we
Sure.
deem, and then if you make that mistake, if you out of the 50 points you summed 43 points, we put 43 plus 0. That plus 0 means that you made a mistake. You didn't lose your points, you made a mistake, and that automatically sends you to the back of the field. You could have been
Sure.
killing it all freaking
Because you'll
day.
have 43 plus zeros at the bottom. And then
Exactly.
who was the worst who was the best of the
Of the
worst?
zeros. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like that.
And the interesting thing is that so many times it has happened where you
Oh,
have
yeah.
who was it? I think it was Rudy Hansen. I mean, he's already an incredible driver, you know, but he made that mistake and he got a 43 plus zero. So he knew that, dang, I'm in the back of the line. If I don't really qualify high, I am out of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's every single guy goes even harder
Yeah,
than
you'll
what
see
they.
them come up.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
it's incredible. It's not just like, oh, I got a zero. No, they knew I was qualifying amongst the highest. I have, I was in the highest score board, but then I made that mistake. And so that's a little interesting situation that we had. I would love to really learn from your judging criteria in the 5 sections, mark them right there, to see how we could even implement that.
Yeah.
You know?
So the other thing that's going to lead into this, and I think a lot of series will want to do this as well, is now that we have, you'll also do qualifying the same way. You'll be paired with a random car,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll be judged on your lead and chase, and that'll
Mm-hmm.
be your qualifying score. That's how you'll be seated. So you'll be battling nonstop.
Yeah,
Solo runs
we don't have
won't
solo
even
runs in our.
exist.
Yep.
If you want a solo run, give them space. But other than that, it's tandems all day.
Same
If
thing
you're
in
here, this is pro. Like I want it to be pro. So 265 max,
Mm-hmm.
2,900 pound cars
Mm-hmm.
as the minimum. And the tread wear is undetermined. I think I actually have a chart made up of every tire I've ever run,
Yeah,
graded out of 10 based on duration, smoke, grip,
the whole thing.
consistency. And I charted them all. And I know personally what tires are good and what are not.
Yeah,
And I will select the tires. And I want these tire companies to pay not a lot, but an amount to have them in the series.
yeah,
So from that leads me to my next point, which you're really going to like. Now that we have scores connected to drivers for every form of their competition,
mm-hmm.
what can you develop from that? Let's look at something else, for example. I don't know, what type of sports are you into?
Single sports, basically like motocross, skateboarding, skydiving,
Skateboarding,
BMX,
UFC, maybe.
UFC. Yeah.
Okay, let's look at UFC.
Okay.
You've got rankings for fighters.
Yep.
You've got their arm reach, you've got their height, you've got their weight, you've got their win percentage.
Yep.
We love that.
Yeah.
We love statistics. What does drifting have? Horsepower. What good is that? Nobody cares about horsepower.
You're hitting something in my heart right now, and I'll tell you why. But keep on going.
Okay, so with this series and this format,
Uh-huh.
you're going to have a score based on a number of battles throughout every event. So let's say you made it to the top 4, and that means that you would have qualified with an 85. Your first battle you won with an 83. Your second battle you won with a 91. Your third battle you won with a 78. You now have what is an average of how you performed in battle.
Yeah.
You now have a ranking. You now have an 8.1 average. And then you go from series to series to series, 20 battles, 30 battles, 40 battles. You will develop
Your
a
ranking.
skill ranking
Yeah.
based on how well you've performed over time in series. Everyone cares about this. This
Yeah.
is what Call of Duty is like. If you have a guy on your team with under a 1.0 KD, which is your kill death ratio,
Yeah.
you don't want him on your team.
Yeah.
And sponsors can now utilize these things. When I was going for a basketball sponsorship, they cared about points per game. They cared about your free throw average. They cared about how many rebounds you got per game. Statistics were everything.
Yeah.
Drifting has nothing.
Correct.
How has FD a monopoly of a series not given these drivers some form of a statistic? We don't even know how many battles Osbo's won and lost.
Yeah.
We know he's won a lot.
Yeah.
He's probably lost a lot too. Like
Yeah.
we don't know what it is. Maybe there's a random driver amongst the rookies or the young guys who has a crazy average.
Yeah.
And you're like, this guy's worth 9.1 out of 10. Like this is a 9. Like
Yeah.
batting averages in baseball. Yeah, you can literally look at anything but drifting and they have these statistics, and I want statistics.
Yeah.
I told you I'm a huge
Yeah.
data guy. So this is how I think. When I look at Tommy Lemaire, one of the best drivers in Canada, I see him as like a high 8s, low 9s driver. And then he goes against someone else, and I already know the outcome almost because
Yeah.
this is a high 6s, low 7s driver that he's
Yeah.
going against, and I'm watching it. That maybe the underdog takes him out, but he's the 9 and that's the 6. And we can see that on the screen. We can actually, like FD tried to do the whole bet thing. How can you bet on someone when you have no idea statistically what the odds are?
Yeah.
We would know what the actual odds
Yeah.
are. This driver is an 8.5, 9 wins, 5 losses. Like, throw it up there, man. You would have the ability to then say, in the Natick series, I'm a 9 driver. To sponsors, that's going to look incredible.
Very much. Yeah.
Like, dude, I want the drivers to feel like they have something to
Yeah.
improve on and strive for. And, dude, if I'm a 7, I'm going to be now practicing, training, doing. Dude, when you win and lose, you're just like, you forget about it. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything. You lost that one, you won this one. Now you feel better. Now you don't remember. It's like you're trying to build something.
Correct.
This would also mean you'll never slack in the chase.
Yes.
This
Very
would be, not only was my judging criteria already going to do that, but now that you have a score attached to it, you'll never
Yeah.
want to have a low chase.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the scenario is. You don't want to leave this battle. You could win with a 60.
Yeah.
Technically, if the guy really messed up, you don't want to win with a 60.
No,
you want to
go
win with a
100.
90.
Yeah.
And this is going to force mistakes. It's going to cause problems, but it's going to make for the best drifting anyone's ever seen.
Yep.
And no series in the world has done this.
You're talking about two things that I'm very passionate about. One, it is the sportsmanship and the data. Just as you, I'm a data guy. There is one secret weapon that we have in Hotpit. His name is Matt. He actually works with Jeff. He's part of his team, and I'm proud of my Excel skills, my Microsoft skills. But Matt could run circles around me.
Mm-hmm.
He built our whole judging system. He built the sheets, the pivot charts, everything, And I think you're going to have to use Matt because this guy is a genius when it comes to this. And we would gladly help you out develop this. 1, 2, you mentioned something horsepower-wise. I, like any drifter, love FD. I appreciate FD. I appreciate the drivers,
Sure.
The whole thing. However, I hate that it has become a horsepower game.
Who cares?
Yes. The whole 265 max 300 treadwear tire was my idea.
You guys have a 265 max?
So that was my idea.
Okay.
And
it's the perfect size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you how it came about. Finally, when Hotpit was about to have their own events, I looked at a lot of different variables. One, what was being sold at the market right now, the cost, the availability, the treadwear, and much more. And one of the things that I ended up realizing is that at some point, my series might become a horsepower game. People naturally tend to think, oh, if I have more power, I have more chances. It is a wrong thinking, in my opinion, because some people have truly murdered, some underpowered cars have truly murdered some very much higher horsepower cars. But it's because we put that tire criteria. Because at a 300 treadwear, horsepower doesn't matter. Now you have
probably up to 400, and then 400 and up is the same.
Correct. That's exactly what it is.
400 is very obtainable.
Yeah. And that made our playing field so leveled. It was crazy.
So DMCC has been that for forever.
Yeah. Oh,
which is the Canadian Series Pro Series.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So DMCC is the Canadian Pro Series. They have one tire company pay for the series. I don't know what they pay, 20, 30 grand to be in it.
Yeah.
And we all have to run 265 Zestino Gretsch. Last year, it was 265 Zeknova. Not other tires with different treadwears. Just that tire.
Yeah.
So this was even one level higher of narrowing down driver skill over anything. Now the thing is,
exactly,
with our 265 RS 240 treadwear, we were still flying. This is a fast tire.
Yeah.
And some of the tracks in Quebec are 100 plus mile per hour entries because in Quebec, everybody's crazy. Bank tracks, like you name it, it's big. And you still could use 700 horsepower. That was the thing.
Well, with a 240, 100%. You can.
Yeah. So then they came with Zestino, which was the 240 Gretsch. The Gretsch doesn't last as long, but is actually even grippier than the Zeknova.
Yeah.
So when I went, I did end up getting the fastest entry of the event at 172
kilometers per hour.
Kilometers.
Which is like about
105
Yeah,
104,
105. Yeah.
105, 106 or something like that. Um, and I run about 700 wheel
Yeah.
horsepower, and I needed it. I
Yeah.
was like, the engine was not hitting limiter. I
Yeah.
was definitely bogging it, and
Dang.
I was adjusting wheel speed to compensate. I was running a fairly high pressure, like 14 for my car.
Yeah.
Typically, I'm running like eights.
Dang.
Um, but the series itself, everyone else is doing the same. It's very comparable. Tandems were close and tight, and if you won, you actually won.
Yeah.
This wasn't a mechanical advantage of a 315 with a 2,500 pound car. This
Correct.
wasn't anything like that. So that is what your series is. That's what I've wanted, and that's what FD should have had.
Yep.
But it takes, sometimes you have, if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
in business, like I feel like business wise, as far as whoever's involved with FD, we probably have more experience with doing those types of things. And I don't know why I was so caught up with saying to myself, this is the only route and I must do this. And if I don't do this, like it's going to be, there's nothing else for me.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second, we've built a company
There's so much
from
more.
nothing that everyone knows as the Mantis kit and everyone's buying it. It's a name I came up with randomly. I don't
Really?
even think bugs are cool. Like I have nothing to do with the praying mantis. But then the trend, man, like on Instagram, our inbox will be filled with people sending pictures of praying mantises. Like, dude, can you believe this? Like from nothing, I have random people.
We have animals in our stuff, dude.
Yes, man. Big duck homes. So people probably send you pictures of ducks and stuff. Like,
Thank God ducks. Thank God ducks.
right. So it's crazy that we've created something where it's picked up and people are sending me pictures of praying mantises and I think it's great. It's sitting in their wheel and they're like, my car has mantis angle or whatever this
Yeah.
morning. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I don't even think they're that. Like, I have nothing to do with a bug, like that bug.
Some of the best things just happen by random. I actually didn't come up with the Big Dog Club name. I'll make this story super short. But when I started drifting, nobody made over fenders.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, one company did. I'll leave their name out simply because I don't want to talk bad about them. I bought a kit. They never sent it to me at all. I disputed for my charge, and then I was like, well, I'm going to make my own. So I
That's
did.
how it happens, dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I did. I had
Now you have
no idea what I was doing, like zero. I was
Mm-hmm.
putting Bondo and wet paper. It was a mess. But I ended up making my over fenders. When it became a thing, when I made the molds and I started making a few, I posted them on Beamer forums when forums were really, really, really hyped up. And the dudes were like, "Oh, that freaking sucks." I know. I'm sorry. I made the tail, the ducktail for the BMW.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, a very big company that we all know, a very big Japanese company, they bought one of mine and then they modified it for their S chassis and then they sold it as theirs. And they were like, "Oh, we are the originators." I'm like, I have the proof that you bought my freaking wing, you jerk.
What e-commerce store are you using?
I was using Wix back then. Now I'm using Shopify. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I figured.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. Shopify is a monster
It
now.
is.
I remember when that's a Canadian company when they were pretty small.
Yeah.
And I was using a Big Cartel when I started,
Yeah.
like $8 a month or something.
Yeah.
I switched to Shopify. It's definitely gotten me to this point.
Yeah.
When you start realizing how much you're paying them,
Yeah.
you're just like,
I know.
I could have
It
a
hurts.
web designer full time
Yeah.
for what I'm giving them. But I do appreciate them as a company. I wish I could talk to people there and be like, thanks for your thing.
Yeah.
I'm doing cool stuff. You can help me now and stop charging so much
I know.
per transaction. If you could sponsor me, but just with less.
Fees.
What do they take? I don't even know, like when you add it up. But it was something in the tune of like $150K a year
Something like that.
throughout all the transactions.
Yeah.
Like they're just taking 2 points here, 2
mean,
points there, but it's a lot.
In
Man.
between the 2.9% from PayPal, if you're using PayPal.
Oh, I scrapped that a long time
Yeah.
ago, man.
Well,
Ours was way worse because of the conversion.
That's
they
right.
take 4.5% off the conversion.
Oh, sheesh.
So which is already really bad
Yeah.
for Canadians.
For people that don't know how to make a conversion, this is a super easy way to just get a little base. Grab the US dollar value, multiply it by 1.39, and that'll give you the closest
Yeah,
ish
it's
conversion.
painful. It's a painful conversion to
Yeah.
do, honestly.
Yeah. So, what are we saying?
PayPal,
Oh,
and
yeah. So, I mean, for the US, PayPal is used like crazy. So,
it's insurance for the buyer.
yeah. But not for us. So many people scam us, dude. It
So a
sucks.
dispute through PayPal is like almost impossible to win as a business.
It is, dude. It sucks that we
We
spend a
canned it, and I never saw a drop. So I would suggest to you, if there's
yeah.
any business value to come from this,
Please
can it,
can
because
it.
get rid of it. I saved so much money. People don't really care at the end of the day if they want your product, especially when it's like ours,
Yeah,
where they're not just shopping. They typed in your
correct.
website. They went to exactly what they want and they are buying it.
Yeah,
That's the same with my store. If you owned a retail store that sold 400,000 items and it was varying, like Drift HQ, for example, they can't get rid of PayPal because people will spend more if they have PayPal.
well, same thing with us. I mean, we have PayPal, we have Square, we have another two financing options, so we have quite a few. But
Yeah,
people just naturally they want PayPal. For a while, I actually hid it, and people were like, "Oh, I just wanted to pay through my
because
PayPal
they have
account."
PayPal credit for you.
Correct.
So they don't have that in Canada.
Oh, that's why.
So people can't use PayPal credit on my website anyways. So
Yeah.
that's why we were able to get rid of it, no problem. But you can also change from Shopify payments to Chase payments. They
Yes.
just integrated that
Yep.
like a month ago.
Yeah.
That will save you like zero point 0.9, almost 1 full%. I don't know
Wow.
if you've done it or not, but
No, I
we're going
haven't.
to save about 40 grand a year off of
Yeah.
Chase, integrating Chase payments. I think it went from like 2 point whatever, and it almost lost the whole percentage
Dang.
per
That's
transaction.
amazing.
So definitely look into that because it
Yeah.
just happened.
Yeah, in between I mean, for us, just in, let's say, um, Square Up,
Hmm.
it's also 2.9 plus 30 cents per transaction. So let's just round up to 2.9% plus another 2% from the website itself, from Shopify,
Hmm.
plus other little things that end users don't really take into account that you are not really putting in the website because X, Y, and Z, because the price may hike too much. Like, for example, shipping. You know, I am shipping boxes that are as tall as me,
Hmm.
and I am a ginormous 5'7". you know? So, and some of these boxes are taller than me.
Yeah.
So my parts, they weigh 18 pounds, 20 pounds, but the box is like a 72 by 22 by 22.
Yeah.
They charge me like $390 to ship,
Yeah.
but I'm charging the customer 250.
Yeah. So you're taking a hit to make the sale, but they don't even realize that.
Correct. And then on top of that, I hear, "Oh, but your shipping is so expensive." I'm like, "No, bro, you don't know. I'm saving you money." But that's part of the business. That's when you
Yeah.
have to be smart and you really need to know what your cost of goods sold is, your profit margins, your
Hmm.
averages, your risk assessment period. That's another. And now we're getting back into business, which I love.
Yeah.
But yeah, part of being a good business owner.
We're at an hour 25. So this will be the conclusion. I would be honored if some of my ideas could be tested, trialed, or talked about amongst you and Jeff and anyone else, because I think that there is a movement within drifting. I think there's key players, and honestly, I think that there's a reason why you were here and messaged me telling
Yeah.
me that you were in the area when you could have easily, like, it's an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
I'm out of the way.
Yeah.
You definitely could have been like, next time, whenever, and then it may never have happened, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I would have totally been fine with that, because
Yeah.
it's like, I understand, like, you got stuff going on. I've got the kids. Like, yeah, it's probably better that, like,
Yeah.
it's fine. But I was excited to share that idea with you, and especially since you've kind of made waves with the Hotpit. It's very similar ideas,
Very.
And then bringing around, like, I love brainstorming with people and people that are able to brainstorm. And like when you get ideas flowing and then you start adding on top of, like, you offer a what if, and then when
Yeah.
you visibly see the person thinking of your idea concept and almost testing it and see if it
Yeah.
holds water, and then they offer an alternative, and then you see if that holds water,
Yeah.
and I absolutely love doing that. You refine it with all of these brilliant minds to the point where you're at 90%. You're almost completely at the perfect point of, you know, how something's going to work. And I say that so loosely because this applies to everything, like
Yeah.
from angle kits to I was creating a part numbering system for my products and how are we going to identify them, and
Yeah.
constantly challenging that to see if one part will ever be labeled the same as another by accident, if that
Yeah.
will ever happen. And we've determined that it never will because
Yeah.
we tried and tried and tried to fault this system, and it proves out every time. So
Yeah.
anyways, I really appreciate that you came down. It was great.
Thank you, dude. Thank you for inviting me over.
Yeah, it's not often that we get to have conversations like this. I definitely didn't think I was going to on a Monday.
Yeah,
Mondays are always tough,
they
man,
are.
for everybody.
I
But
gotta drive to London tomorrow, which is like 3 hours. I think 3 hours from where I'm
no,
at.
no, it's not.
No,
No,
someone told me 3 hours. I was like, oh
no, dude. Have you typed it in yet?
no.
When you were there? No, it's
I
like
just,
hour and a half.
okay, I just know it's halfway to Michigan. That's the only thing that I
So
know.
London is like near Niagara Falls. Um, maybe you should go to Niagara Falls when you're down there.
Maybe.
It's a nice place.
Yeah.
Have you been there
No.
before? Okay, maybe you should go. No, I don't think it is. I think it's like an hour, hour and a half.
Okay, that's
You're
good.
going back to Brampton?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say an hour and a half.
Okay,
But
that's
don't quote me.
much better.
Just it's not 3.
Okay.
So
One
don't be
of
too disappointed.
one of the things that I'm gonna say before we end it, and I told this same thing to Jeff, and I haven't said this to that many people because I really don't feel it, but it is incredible. You and I think very similarly. You know, we had dinner right before this and we really talked, our minds freely. And a lot of your thoughts and my thoughts were very, very close.
Hmm.
And I really appreciate that because I know that the feedback that I'm going to give you and you're going to give me and the conversations are actually going to be heard, as you said right now, to see if they hold water.
Hmm.
You know, Jeff is the exact same way. That's actually one of the reasons why we are good partners in a way, because we are critical thinkers and we think similarly. I would love for Jeff to be in this chat. Maybe I'll
He does
buy,
podcasts. I've seen him on them,
yeah,
so
maybe I'll
for sure.
just put him in my luggage, or I'll pay my ticket and I'll put myself in the luggage while he carries it. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, there's value to be
Yeah.
had everywhere. So I
Yeah.
think that anyone that's come to my shop or seen what I've done is always left with something, whether
Yeah.
it's products or whether it's
Yeah.
you know, inspiration to do something for themselves, or maybe they've thought about something that they wanted to do.
Yeah.
See that I've told so many stories of what I did in the beginning and how nobody's willing to do that. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you've done things like that as well. And when I tell those stories, they all of a sudden have reason or inspiration to try that thing that's just been sitting there in the corner, whether it's a thought or an idea or whatever, or if it's exercise to pick up the weight, or if it's whatever it is.
Yeah. Anything.
It's really anything. The things that I was doing to get started were like, I would not do them now.
Yeah.
I had to do them then, but I would not do it now.
It goes back to really conditioning your mind and making it a routine. One of my business mentors told me once, even when you don't want to do what is needed to be done, force yourself to do it because the reward, it is going to be greater.
Yeah.
Like going to the gym. You don't want to go to the gym, but you force yourself to go. You pump the weights, and then you're like, wow, I freaking loved going. You know?
Yeah. The win is always bigger. So
Same thing in business.
it took a while, but I trained the thought process to
Yeah.
be, as soon as I've told myself, stay in bed, hit the snooze button one more time, as soon as I think it's around the third or fourth thought of against what I'm trying
Yeah.
to do, a switch goes off and it says, now that you've said that 4 times, you've won the award of having to get it. You must get up now. And my brain has done that now.
I like
It
that.
took a long time to get there because it's a mechanism of, it's almost like the one side is sleeping.
Yeah.
As soon as he says, just stay in bed,
Yeah.
3, maybe 4 times, he's up and he was like, you're
Bro,
not saying that anymore.
That should be an award. You have won the award of having. That would
Yeah.
put a fire under anybody's butt.
Right?
Oh my gosh. I like if somebody gave me that award, I'll be like, I'm gonna show you up.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Awesome, dude.
Okay. Thanks for coming down, dude.
Thanks, dude.
Thanks, guys, for listening. See you on the next one.
Peace.